Behind me is the Bond Hotel, one of 3 hotels owned by the Silver Hotel Group, which was used as a homeless shelter over the past 2 years during the pandemic. It has since been sold to the City of Toronto for an undisclosed, ungodly, no doubt, sum and will be converted into affordable housing. Meanwhile, until that happens, the drug dealers continue to ply their trade outside the hotel, and the mayhem at this corner is unbelievable, particularly at night. This hotel shelter is within walking distance of the condo where Rick Craddock and his lovely wife reside. Rick was brutally beaten and nearly left for dead back in May.
Jane and I have a friend of ours that's in the restaurant business. Jane came home that night and she says, "Oh, Tony's at this restaurant. We got to go see him." So I said, "Okay, let me just take the dog for a quick walk." And I came down and I got to the corner of the building, and one of my neighbors came running down to ask me a question. And while we were standing talking, we could hear all this yelling and screaming going on down, to the north of us. And when I got to the kids' playground, what was happening is the building next door to us is a co-op, and they have balconies. And the people were on their balconies yelling at these 2 fellows because their dog was in the kids' playground. And, it's like doing all its business. And there's signs all over the place, no dogs allowed, and it's City of Toronto. And as I was walking by, I stopped. And I said to the fellows, they're right. I said, you need to listen to them. You shouldn't have your dog in here. This is really not the place to have it. Kids play in here daily. And he's yelling and screaming at me that, well, it's a service dog. And I know darn well it wasn't a service dog. So I went, well, whatever. And as I started walking away, out of the corner of my eye, I caught him coming off because he was on top where the slide is. And he jumped down to the ground, and I got to where the first gate is, and I just kind of held it shut with my hand so he couldn't open it. So what he did was he climbed up on top of the fence, which has got to be 5-foot high fence. And how he got on top, I don't know. But anyway, he got on top of the fence, and I backed up away from him, and he just pile drove me. It was like a wrestling match, where the guy comes off the top rail, boom, took me down to the ground. So while I was on the ground, stomped on my hand, broke my hand, and then this friend of his was holding him back, and he kept saying to me, "You need to get the hell out and get out of here." Well, there were a lot of things that had happened I wasn't aware of, but I couldn't get up and I couldn't stand up, So I finally got up, but I couldn't move. And with that, he came back at me again, and he pushed me backwards. And there's a couple of garbage cans, and they're chained to a steel post. He pushed me backwards, I hit my head on the post, and knocked myself out. And then I came to, and I thought, I'm going to call 911, and then I'll give my wife a call. You need to come down. This is what's happening. And I couldn't get through. 911 was busy. But why it was so busy, is they received 30 calls in about 10 minutes about my meeting. And there happened to be 2 plainclothes police officers were just over at Yonge and our church in Dundas. So they're like, wow, we're right there. We're nice and close. So they were the first ones here. There was all Mutual Street here was completely shut down. There was like 2 or 3 fire trucks, ambulance. I don't know how many police cars showed up, but it was unbelievable. They just poured in. I was rushed into St. Mike's Hospital. Called Jane. Jane came down, got the dog. She ran up, dropped the dog off, and then met me at the emergency. So while I'm in there, of course, they did an MRI, they did CAT scan, they did all kinds of stuff. Now the thing is while I was there, I had no feeling in my legs. Yeah, from my waist down. And I thought, wow, this is weird. So the doctor then came back out with the results of the MRIs and everything, and he just walked in and he said to Jane and I, he goes, "Well, you broke your back."
Is that when you tumbled into the...
No, I think that was when he came down off the top of the fence, because he came right down on top of me. And then I fell backwards with him on top of me, And I think that may be when it was, because when I tried to get up, I couldn't get up.
Does it traumatize you, or do you?
No, it doesn't, actually. It doesn't at all, because I know, the guy has been arrested by the police. He has been charged. The cop did tell us when he did come up to the emergency, he did say that he's known to them, but he's never been violent before. But they do wellness checks, and he's one of the on their list, right?
This, folks, is John Tory's Toronto, a city that has declined considerably under his watch over the last 8 years.
It's like a personal attack on the city of Toronto, okay? It's always been a beautiful place. And I've traveled all around, and I always bragged about living in Toronto. Well, I'm from Toronto, great. Now I wouldn't dare tell anybody I'm from here. The violence has just skyrocketed. And I'm putting this in an 8-year, so John Tory's done 2 terms so far.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's finished. But he did 2 4-year terms, 8 years, and that's when things really started to go sour.
Rick is one of the innocent victims of this cesspool. Thankfully, he has survived to tell the tale. For True North, I'm Sue Ann Levy.